Okay, podcasters, this is Chris Webster, and this is going to be a tutorial on editing with Audacity. So on the screen, you'll see that I've got some students of mine, and this is Mr. Brian Melendez, and I've set his folders up the way I always set my folders up with all my stuff. And I usually do sources as a 00 folder. 01 would be, it's Audacity in this case because that's what I'm editing with, but it could be GarageBand, Audition, you could just say podcast files, whatever. But it's the actual in-work files, not the source files. And then versions is the exported MP3s or whatever you're exporting. So that's for that. And I leave space between 01 and 10 so I can add other folders as necessary because I always want versions to be the last thing on the bottom so they're easy to find. So I've already got his raw wave file in here, and we have nothing in the Audacity folder. So the way we're going to do this is I'm going to start Audacity. Now, to download Audacity from the internet, basically just type in Audacity and look for Mac or Windows. One thing you'll need, which we'll talk about a little bit later, is the lame encoder. I know that sounds weird, but if you want to export an MP3 file, they're apparently not licensed to do so right out of the box. So you have to download something called the lame encoder. When you try to export an MP3, a little box will pop up and it'll say, download this thing here, then follow the instructions for Mac or Windows. It'll have you add that library, and then it's super easy to export your MP3. So, okay. Well, with Audacity, there's several ways you can get audio in here. The easiest way is to just drag it in. So let's just drag that in right there. This warning popped up. Let's see, make a copy of the files before editing. Always do that. If you have the space, do that. If you read the files directly and you make a mistake, then you can't go back. There's no undo once you save the files. So this will make a copy of the file and allow everything to work better. And if you want to not be warned of that again, I'm going to leave this unchecked because maybe sometimes I want to edit faster. Who knows? All right, so it's going to do that. Let me widen this screen back out when it's done. Okay, so when I had these guys record in class, I used an older version of the Zoom recorder that I used, the Zoom H4. This is the H6 and it's brand new, but I used the H4, and the H4 has a special mode it has to go into to do multi-track recording, because what you're looking at here is a stereo recording. They're both on essentially one track here, and that's what this thing is here. So we want to be able to edit them separately in most cases because even if you don't edit any of the audio clips out, they're going to have different equalization standards, different compression, different amplification, things like that. And I can't do that separately without a lot of work. So what we're going to do is we're going to split these up. Okay, so in Audacity, there's a lot of stuff up in the menu items. A lot of buttons up here. We'll go over some of that stuff, but if I just click on the little down arrow on the track right here, you'll see split stereo to mono. Let's hit that. Now, and I can actually widen these up to see some more space here. Now I've got two individual tracks, okay? And that's perfect. That's exactly what we want, okay? For reasons that we'll see later, I'm going to want to move these a little bit. So if I just drag on my trackpad, it's 3-finger drag, but probably just a click and drag to highlight a section of both. And I click this transport tool right here, this one that's right here. And then I can pull both of those. So I'm going to pull them out to about 20 seconds or well, about 15 seconds. You'll see why in a minute. Actually, you'll see why at the end. Okay, some other stuff with Audacity. So if I click right here, it's just going to start playing because quick play is turned on. You can turn that on or turn that off in the preferences.
Okay.
All right, so these guys have a little bit of setup.
This is Brian's podcast.
Okay, and I'll close the door and you can kick it off.
I feel good. I feel good about it.
All right. Hey, when you're done, just... Okay, here's where they actually start.
Hello, everybody.
Okay, so I'm going to clip everything coming up to that point, and I want to do it in both tracks. So I'm going to go back to the selection tool here, and let me clip. Now, for this, I'm just going to hit the delete key, and it's going to ripple delete. See that? So ripple deleted everything in. Sometimes I want that, and sometimes I don't. We'll show you how to fix that here in a second. Because if I want to get rid of all this, which is just bleed over from Brian's track, if I delete that, then ripple deletes Karen in, and we're no longer synced up. So I'm going to Command Z to undo that on a Mac. And then we'll see how to do that. Now, there is a remove special split delete, which is on a Mac, it's Option Command K, or you can just go up there and click it. Now, if I go up here and I'll show you that, Option Command K for split delete. Now it doesn't ripple delete, and you're going to use that a lot. So let's go ahead and listen to this.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Coffee with an Indian. I'm your resident Indian, Brian Melendez. And today we have a very special guest. I'm super excited to speak with her. I've been doing a lot of research on her, so I've been following her.
So those of you that have watched my GarageBand editing know that I kind of edit live. I haven't found a way to do that with Audacity, so you have to do a lot of pausing and restarting.
My wife
so keep in mind where your playhead is.
Issues and the food that she eats. So in some way or another, her information is impacting me, whether or not I've had this conversation with her before previously. But I want to introduce Catherine Lucas. Lucas.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. My handwriting is horrible. So I wrote on this paper, and this is what I wrote. And so I'm just following the paper, and I completely deviated.
No worries.
But it's okay. I'm sorry, Catherine. So I'm just going to call you Catherine. Can I call you Catherine?
You can call me whatever you want, Brian.
Okay, perfect. And so, Catherine, you are the founder.
Okay, so we're going to get rid of all that.
But I want to introduce Catherine Lucas. Lucas?
Because he actually pronounced her name right.
Lucas, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I actually pronounced her name right. So I'm going to get rid of these first off. Remember where he was.
But it's okay. I'm sorry, Catherine. So I'm just going to call you Catherine. Can I call you Catherine?
You can call me whatever you want, Brian.
Okay, perfect. And so, Catherine, you...
Okay, so...
But Catherine Lucas...
We're still going to get rid of both of these at the same time for now, anytime we're deleting. Okay, now we can get rid of all Catherine stuff using the special delete, and I'll just show you that. Split delete. There we go. Now let's listen to this again.
Introduce Catherine Lucas. And so, Catherine, you are the founder of Farmhouse Culture, right? And you've been doing this for over 10 years.
Right.
Okay, I delete everything that can be possibly deleted. Okay.
Doing this for over 10 years.
Right.
Selling food and beverages all across the country.
Right.
So tell me about it. What is it that you do all across the country?
Right.
So tell me about it. What is it that you do exactly?
Well,
okay, I'm going to show you one thing here. Another thing you can do besides split deleting, if you want to use these hotkeys up here, is this key right here will silence an audio selection. This will silence everything outside of what you have selected. So if I select that, it silences everything. You don't want that. But this one will silence everything you have selected. So that's another option. It's less confusing sometimes and doesn't cause the ripple delete. Like I already know Brian's going to not say anything right there. So I'm going to do that right there.
Do exactly.
Well, we make fermented probiotic foods that are gut healthy. And I started out really wanting to change the food system. And I fell in love with sauerkraut and fermented foods a number of years ago, learned how to make them in a natural chef culinary program.
So if you put your playhead somewhere, basically if I click in here, when I zoom in, it's going to zoom in on that point. Like if I go here, it's going to zoom in on, if I zoom in even over here with the cursor, it's still going to, Audacity is kind of weird. It zooms in where the cursor is. Most other programs will zoom where the playhead is or where your marker is, but Audacity will zoom wherever your mouse button is. So on a Mac trackpad, that is just out and in on the pinch. And anytime I'm trying to do a fine-tuned cut here, I want to zoom in really close.
Had a restaurant there, and that's where I tasted real sauerkraut for the...
So we're going to leave that in. Sometimes I don't leave in the talk over stuff, but I like his comment.
No, I was a chef in Germany for a few years, had a restaurant there, and that's where I tasted real sauerkraut for the first time because all I'd ever really known before that was canned sauerkraut, which I didn't like. So tasting fresh sauerkraut was this revelation for me, not only in terms of like, hey, this is like not that salty, it's not that sour, it's not that slimy like the stuff I knew from the can, but I also like felt really good when I ate it. And I was like, this is pretty cool food. And so I started incorporating it into dishes in my restaurant. And when I came back to the States and learned how to ferment, I just got totally hooked and started selling through a friend's community-supported agriculture box, a local farmer's market. One thing led to another. The timing was right in 2000. And people were starting to talk about gut health, but it really wasn't that big of a thing just yet. I was really into it for the culinary the culinary aspects of it, because it tastes so good. So I was making these hybrid kimchis and sauerkrauts. So like our first sauerkraut that was became very popular is a smoked jalapeno sauerkraut. And so we do all these different flavored sauerkrauts.
I love sauerkraut.
Do you?
Okay. So he comes back in right there. We know we're going to get rid of that. Let's look right here, see if we can get rid of his lip smack that everybody does. We can if we go in close enough. Let's get rid of that too. Whenever you're deleting and stuff and moving things around, always come back a little ways, 5-6 seconds, and so you can hear the flow of the sentence without just the cut point.
And so we do all these different flavored sauerkrauts.
I love sauerkraut.
Do you?
Oh, for sure.
And then we got into fermented.
Okay, so since I'm going to go on, I'm going to do that so I know where to cut from here. Okay, it's a short section.
And other snacks, and it's just taken off, and yeah, that's what farmhouse culture is.
Okay. So Brian goes back to the tuck in here.
I love it. Well, you studied in Germany.
Okay, we're going to do a few things here. We're going to first get rid of this, because this is all bleed over. Brian has an here. We're going to get rid of that. But since we need to delete both tracks, we're going to highlight both sections here. Just hit delete. Now they're still synced up, which you should be able to see when Karen starts talking again. There you go. Or sorry, Catherine. All right.
And yeah, that's what farmhouse culture is about.
I love it. Well, that you studied in Germany, I'm going to segue onto this some like little weird thing that happened with me. As our previous conversation, so you are aware that I went to culinary school and I studied too. And so one of the executive chefs that I studied under, he was from Germany. He's a German.
Oh.
Hans Lauer. He was an executive chef, and we spent a lot of time creating and crafting dishes of his community, right? And so that's where I got the flavors for that, right? And I'm like, wow.
Okay, we'll get rid of that.
That's where I got the flavors for that, right? And I'm like, I love that. I love the sauerkraut, and I love the swingbraten, and I love the schnitzels and the spatzels and all those things.
Yeah.
Like I just and the spatzels and all of those things.
Yeah.
Like I just love it. So anytime I get to a place where there's that real heavy like Bavarian culture,
Yeah.
I'm all over it. I'm like, just give me all over it. I'm like, just give me a plate of sauerkraut and like a biscuit or something.
It's pretty
like,
satisfying food.
I'm like, just give me a plate of sauerkraut and like a biscuit or something.
It's pretty
like,
satisfying food.
Oh, it's great. It's beautiful. So I'm really
Okay, we're just clipping away here.
happy to hear that you're doing that. Have you seen an increase in your business as far as like people's awareness to these types of foods?
Well, one of the things that happened that I could have never predicted is
Just getting
in
ready to cut.
2010, 2011, new science started making its way into the mainstream. And that's the science of the microbiome. They're calling it the second genome. So it turns out that we're like 90% human DNA. And this new information is such a huge shift in consciousness. It's hard to really fathom it. It's like we just found. It's such
When
a
you
huge
start
shift
to
in consciousness,
recognize
it's
what
hard to
waveforms look
really
like,
fathom
you'll know
it.
that
It's
there's
like
no ums
we
or
just found out
ahs
the
or
world
things
is
like that on
round, but we
Brian's
have no
side.
idea what
So
it
I just got rid
means
of all of
just
it.
yet. But doctors who are studying this keep pointing to fermented foods being an important part of a healthy gut. If you've got a healthy gut, you've got a healthy body. It's so interconnected. It's really hard to separate the two. And so the information that has been coming out for the last several years has been a huge boom to our business, and no doubt part of the reason for our success. Everybody's looking to get fermented foods into their guts.
I love it. So you do know, you're looking at me, right? I'm a pretty brown guy, right?
Yeah.
So brown guy, right?
Yeah.
So you know that just by looking at me, I'm a pretty brown guy, I'm a tribal guy, right? That I come from a tribal community. I come from these communities where people have all different types of health issues, right? From the food that we eat that's oftentimes really bad for us, right? From the things that we're putting into our bodies. And a lot of it comes down.
Okay. I'm not deleting all the ums because some of them, it really is up to you on whether or not you want to take the time to do it. When it's isolated like that, I'll go ahead and do it. So I highlighted both of those tracks because we want to bring them in at the same time and hit the delete key. Go back a little further.
Right? The things that we're putting into our bodies. And a lot of it comes down to just our awareness or education to that process. I want to know, how is it that the information that you know?
So don't delete all the pauses all the time. You can do that if it seems appropriate, but he's being really thoughtful here, and he wants to really understand, be deliberate with what he's saying. So I'm going to leave in that pause.
Is it that the information that you know, what it is that you know how to do, how does that information transcend to communities like mine in the country?
Yeah.
Or maybe even the world? Yeah. How does that information...
Okay, we got a couple things here. She's not going to speak until there. We'll leave these in.
Yeah. Or maybe even the world. Yeah. How does that information transition so that way somebody can understand what it is that you do and why it has a value? So that way they can incorporate it into their daily life.
Right, right. Well, I think I'm going to answer that question in two parts. The first is that your culture has a beautiful food tradition, no matter what tribe you're talking about. Beautiful, beautiful food traditions. And so really they just need to be rediscovered. And that's going to take people in your community rediscovering those and bringing them to your community. And so as much as my group of foodie friends and liberal progressives who want to save the world one gut at a time want to help your community, it's presumptuous of us to think that we can. What we need are liaisons like you who speak our language and speak your tribe's language. Because I'm guessing, tell me if I'm wrong, that if I were to walk onto a reservation today, a middle-aged white lady started telling your folk how they should be eating to have a healthy gut and to how to lose weight, I don't know. Do you think they could hear me? Could hear me? It'd be better coming from you, right?
You know what? Yes, and
okay, we're gonna leave all that in because I like it. He's really thinking.
Think they could hear me? It'd be better coming from you, right?
You know what? Yes and no. I mean, I think there would be a lot of people that would hear you, but again, it would be that there wouldn't be a forum, right? So very often there aren't the forums within these communities for that to even occur. So would people hear you? Would they internalize it? Would they be able to make sense of it? I think that they would, and I think that you are skilled and you have so much information, and that you would be able to help people. That I think that you could. Yeah. I absolutely do believe that you could. Now, again, those centers don't really exist in very many locations, and so we don't, as tribal people, don't always have networks where we're doing that. So yes, very much so. I think a liaison process, like somebody like me. That's why, again,
sorry, a lot of podcast editing is just listening.
For me as a professional Indian, that's what I do.
Yeah.
Trying to help.
Listen lots of times.
Help bridge the gap between the people and the resources and the things that other people and cultures have, and why we need to be helping.
Now, one thing you can do is you can go through this whole thing, make your cuts and things like that, and do all this silencing at the very end. I just like to do it throughout, probably because I got used to doing that with Adobe Audition. It is a little more complicated with Audacity because you have to stop and do it, and you can't do it live, sort of real time. If you can, let me know. I haven't found a way to do it, but it doesn't seem like you can actually do that. So I think you just figure out whichever way is faster for you, whatever your workflow is. Okay. Should be about halfway through this. Let me check. You can hit the zoom expanse key here. You can see where I'm at right here with these cuts, actually right there. And yeah, we're about halfway through. All right, let's keep going.
Why we need to be helping and working together.
So Brian, if I were working with you, what I would say is, let's start from the beginning. Let's go and get some gardens going, right? Let's get some fresh food into the diets. And then when we've got an abundance of cabbage or zucchini or whatever, let me show you how to ferment it. Let me show you how to make a 300-pound barrel together in community. And then your community's got that through the winter or whatever. They've just got it always in their diet. And now you've got fresh vegetables and fermented foods in your diet. That's where you start. You just start with the basics. And also because if I were working with you, that's where you start. You just start with the basics. And also because it's accessible financially. It doesn't cost that much to grow some vegetables, and it certainly doesn't cost that much to throw some salt.
Let's see if we can't fix that just to show you what's going on
Accessible financially. It doesn't cost that much to grow some
So right here,
vegetables. And
she says vegetables the right way. And right here, she says vegetables. So let's get rid of that. But remember, we got to clip both of these. And you see the start of the waveform right here. She's running right into this word right here. So this is the end of that word and the beginning of this word, vegetables. Well, we want to clip this little silence here when she was restating what she said. So it comes, so this ends up right here. So let's do that.
Much to grow some vegetables, and it certainly doesn't cost that much to throw some salt on them and ferment them.
I love the idea of a 300-pound barrel.
All right, I'm just going to get rid of this because I'm insane.
Of sauerkraut, right? So all of that just sounds super, right?
Okay, so
sauerkraut, right?
She started to speak there, but Brian's still going, so I'm going to cut that breath out.
Pound barrel of sauerkraut, right? So all of that just sounds super, super sexy to me. So I think that I can, I could really get into that, right? So
sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited.
We can cut that
part.
Yeah,
no, I feel good about it. We'll just leave it because, this show, we go pretty raw. So the whole idea is to just have this really raw conversation and just try to get into the meat of it. And so, again, I have my own intent as you have your intent, the people. I have my own intent as you have your intent, the people in the demographic that you're trying to reach in the world. And your job is to go out and save the world, one fermented product at a time. And my job is to save my people. So my job is to ask you the questions like, how do you associate, or how would you associate, or how do?
Okay, let's go to that.
Or how do you, in the event that there was an avenue, would you be willing to help people in these segments, in these communities?
I think it's key. I think
I always get rid of lip smacks. Silence. Get rid of this. We know where our start point is.
I think it's key. I think what we understand now between the brain gut axis is that if people's guts are healthy, they're more healthy emotionally as well. There's a big problem with depression in your community, and it's cultural, but there is no doubt in my mind that it's also nutritional because they're eating all these highly processed carbs. So I think what would be really interesting, for instance, would be to like a tribal gut project, have some microbiome scientists come in, take gut samples of folks, put them on, 6-month different sort of a diet, lots of fiber, lots of fermented foods, and then test their guts again and see what it looks like. I think that those are the ways that I could help interface with what we understand now between the...
So I hit play again and it went all the way back, so that's okay.
Interface with different cultures.
Select both. Delete, it ripples.
I could help interface with different cultures.
Leave that pause because she wanted to pause.
These cultures have to help themselves because I think it's really more effective if I train somebody like you and you train trainers within your community, and then it really starts to spread more organically.
Okay. So now the information that I'm finding on your website and throughout your book it's all very relevant to what it is that you're saying. Is there more information that people can get directly from you? Is there things that you're providing, services that you provide to people in communities directly?
Not yet, but we certainly would like to. Farmhouse culture, as we grow and become more successful, there has been discussion of taking a percentage of our sales and putting them into, gut projects, testing communities around the country, and helping people find
I'm
their
just scrolling
ways
through manually
to
here.
a healthier gut. Our products are
Getting ready to silence Brian's
my
side.
goal. I should just say this quickly. When I first started selling our krauts, we sell our krauts for $6-7 a pound. Many of my competitors at the time were selling $10, $12 pounds of kraut. Like, who's going to pay $10 or $12 for a pound of raw organic kraut? Not your people, not most of the people. And when I got into making good food and wanting to change the world with healthy food, it wasn't because I wanted to make food for the 1%. So I was a single mom. It was important to me to make our products as affordable as possible. And we dropped all of our krauts and kimchis by $1 per pound last year. We took a hit on our margins in order to make it more accessible to more people. That's a really important value of our company. So even though it may seem like a lot to spend $6 on a pound of kraut for a single mom with 3 kids, there are something like 8 bottles of probiotics in 1 pound of kraut. So a pound of kraut is a lot cheaper than buying a probiotic supplement.
Let's get rid of all that.
Cheaper than buying a probiotic supplement.
I just bought a bunch of probiotics. I know it's not
right.
It's not cheap.
Super expensive.
Yeah,
Let's get rid of some of this. We know we're going to get rid of that.
Yeah, you fish around, you're looking, and you try to find it, and people that aren't even familiar with that process are very unaware as to what type of cultures that are in that product.
Yeah, so. And they're like, we don't really fully understand if you isolate a probiotic digested with, is your body still able to metabolize it? Where you're getting your probiotics in your food, either from kraut or kimchi or yogurt or kombucha or whatever. That your body's able to synthesize that because it's in the form of food.
Let's go get rid of that. Get rid of this here.
Whatever. That your body's able to synthesize that because it's in the form of food. Naturally get those probiotics into your life.
Beautiful. You know what? Everything you're saying is something that I love. Everything that you're saying is something that we need. Everything that you're saying is something that I believe that people from tribal communities all over the country would be able to relate to, because we understand what we're eating and where we come from. And if there is a way to bring that awareness and education and functional application into the communities, then I would love to have that. And so we will definitely be in contact with you.
Good.
When we say we, I'm saying all of the millions and millions of Indians that are out there listening to this right now that really have stomach issues and need a service or need a help or need somebody to bounce a thing off of. I'm going to have them just flood you and your organization with information,
Great.
right? Because there's a need for this. And so we will stay in touch. Sure. We'll have all your information identified and links on the podcast and for this. And so we will stay in touch. Sure. We'll have all your information identified and links on the podcast and things of that nature, so we can stay in touch. But absolutely, I would love to bring you back on and have some more conversations in the future if you wouldn't mind doing that.
Okay, they're in the wrap up here.
You wouldn't mind doing that.
I would love that, Brian. And I just want to say one more thing. If anybody in your community wants to buy my book and doesn't feel like they can afford to, have them write me. You can put my email on the link and I will send them a free copy.
That is so awesome. You know what, Catherine? You were awesome. Thank you so much for teaching us a thing and sharing with us a thing. And when you come to the reservation, I promise I will keep my uncles away from you.
Hi.
How about that? Unless you're looking for an Indian, I know some guys. But if you don't, I'll tell them to leave you alone.
Well, I'm single,
right?
so
I have some good-looking uncles. They're really good. They look like me. They're really good-looking guys. So yeah, just listen to that, uncle. She's in. She said she's in. So. She's in. So we're good. So, but thank you so much, Catherine. And what is the best way for people to get a hold of you on your website?
I just go to farmhouse
your website?
I just go to farmhouseculture.com and then the info at my assistant answers all those emails and they'll direct anything to me.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming and being here and giving us all your time and information, and we greatly appreciate that.
Okay.
And being here and giving us all your time and information, and we greatly appreciate that. And this is where we part ways, and if anything, we're going to go share some kraut.
Yeah, let's go do it.
Let's go do that.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much, Catherine, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, nice clean ending. Let's just chop that. Perfect. Let's finish our cleanup here. Finish our cleanup here. Finish this right here. Okay. All right, now we're going to do some waveform editing. Let me go ahead and bring this all the way out. Okay, so these little buttons up here, if I hit solo, that means every other track in here is muted. If I hit mute, it means this track is muted. The other ones are done. It might seem ridiculous with just 2 tracks, but if you've got 13 tracks and you want to just listen to one of them, rather than hit mute on all of them, you can just hit solo on that one. In fact, if you just want to listen to 2 of them, you can actually hit solo on both of them, and they'll both go. When I only have 2 tracks here, I can't figure it out, but if I had more tracks, I could go solo on a handful of them. So, okay, so we're going to go solo on this one so we can just hear what's going on.
With an Indian, I'm your resident Indian.
Okay.
Brian.
So one thing I don't like about Audacity is it doesn't let you listen while you're doing equalization or anything, so you can't do it real time. So we're going to do 3 things: equalization, compression, and amplification. You might have to do noise reduction if you're in a noisier area first, but always do that first. And of course, select the file, then effect, equalization. Now I did an EQ on a file before, actually the other half of this podcast, and this is what I had, and I like it, so I'm going to keep it. If you want to hear how it sounds, it'll play a
Hello, everybody.
segment.
Welcome to Coffee with an Indian. I'm your resident Indian.
Okay, that's fine. Let's do that. Now you see that all the waveform got bigger there. That's going to come right down when I do the compression. Now, these are my general compression settings. It's going to depend on what you need. The threshold, the noise floor, the ratio is always 3:1 that I use. Attack time is about 400 milliseconds, and then the release time is virtually nothing. So you don't really need to know what any of that means. You can just play with these sliders. This one right here and this one right here are kind of important. Play with those until it sounds good. But what you're trying to do is, you see these peaks and valleys right here? You're trying to equalize everything, so somebody doesn't have to ride the volume knob when they're listening, because these are quieter, these are louder, quieter, louder, stuff like that. So you'll see it change here in a minute. There you go, evened out. All right, now one thing we're going to do is amplification.
You are aware that I went to
you can see this up here. I want to be between -6 and -3 on the average for the peak here.
He's a German.
Maybe a little over -3.
He's an executive chef, and
because I want people to not have to turn this up all the way.
I'm super excited.
Okay, so I'm just going to add a little bit of amplification, probably 1 or 2 dB. And it always grays out. You have to allow clipping, even though it's not really clipping. Let's do 1.5 to see what it looks like. That's not bad.
Super excited to
there we go.
speak with.
I like that. All right, now let's do Karen's track. Okay, I'm going to give her the same EQ because I did it before. And I also need to select the file first. EQ. That's good. You'll just want to play with these things and see what sounds good, but I already know these because I've done them before. We'll do the same compression. Let's see where she's at on
for the first time, because all I'd ever really known before that was can.
So she needs about the same amplification. Always select. All right, amplify. Let's go up to 1.5.
Sour. It's not that slimy like the stuff.
Nice. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to bring this in just a little bit here, because I have some music. I'm going to go to the Archaeology Podcast Network here. I'm just going to pick something fun. Kind of like retro soul. Okay, let's find something new. So I'm going to go to bensound.com. This is my kind of go-to for a lot of this stuff. Let's go to jazz. I like some jazz. Let's check out the lounge. I've heard most of these. You just hit play and it'll play for a second. If it doesn't say purchase, these are all free, license free. Takes a second to kick off on the download. I actually kind of like that a lot because I've heard this one before. So let's download that. So that's going to download, and then it'll end up in a folder over here, the download folder. It's also going to open iTunes here in a minute and just play it because that's how Macs work, which is really irritating. So Bensound, the lounge is right there. Now I'm going to copy that file. I always bring everything into sources so I know where everything's at. Melendez, sources, Control V. All right. So there's that. Now all I got to do is drag that into here. It will create a new track. If I take mute off, take mute off, do this. There we go. Now I got the plus sign. I don't think it was done downloading yet. So that created a new track. Now, let me shrink this up a little bit here. Shrink this up a little bit here. All right. Now I'm going to solo this because I want to know where I want to start. Probably right here. That's a long ways out though to start your content. I don't think I'm going to do it. Okay, I think I'm just going to start somewhere around in here. So let's move this track to about where we want to start it. That looks good right there. Now I'm going to select everything. Go back to move here. And let's move everybody to the beginning. Okay. I like to start just out from the beginning right at about 1 second. All right, there we go. Okay, that's looking good. All right, so now we need to make this audio quiet while he's speaking. He introduces Karen right here, so I'm going to come down here and actually do a split on those tracks. Okay, so we have the music placed where we want it. Now we have to use the envelope tool to actually adjust the sound of that music. And not the sound, but the amplitude. The way you do that here on Audacity, you can see I'm zoomed in to about 1 second, every little tick mark there. I'm going to zoom in a little closer right here. So I want the music to just click right there, and I'll click right there, and then I'll drag this in, and the music will come down. All right. Now for this, I'm going to unmute everything.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Coffee with an Indian. I'm your resident Indian, Brian Melendez. And today we have a very special guest. I'm super excited.
Okay, that sounds good. And now I'm going to do the same thing here, because when he brings in his guest, we'll want the music to drop all the way. You just got to be careful with the little placement there. Let's bring this here. We'll split the clips right there. All right. So that's it for the music on the front end. Now I'm going to pull this all the way over this file. Okay, so before I mess with this file, I'm going to create another point right here and make it all the way loud again so I can hear it. And now we just need to find a point to exit the music on. Exit the podcast on. Okay, that's good right there where the music changes.
And
Okay, so right about there. All right, so let me bring this one down to match. Okay, now we just have to move this to the end of the podcast, right there. And we want to start this where
those emails and they'll direct anything to me.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much.
Which was right there. Let's go back to the envelope tool. Select right here. Right here. We'll drop it all the way down. All right. Back to select. Choose that point. Command I. Choose this segment here with the select tool. And delete it. And it did a ripple delete. So remember, you go up to edit, remove special, split delete. Now we got rid of it. Okay.
My assistant answers all those emails and they'll direct anything to me.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming and being here and giving us all your time. And
Let's go do it.
Let's go do that.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much, Catherine, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, that's good. Let's see the whole thing. And now we just have to export. Export as MP3. You'll want to find your location, the versions folder. And that's Coffee with an Indian, EP000. MP3 files. Constant bitrate is okay. 128 kbps. You don't need any more than that. And force export to mono. And they always give you that warning. Here you can add some metadata. Artist name. Track title. This will be the episode 000. Album title. And you can add some other stuff in here if you want. Okay, so the export's being done, and that's it. We'll listen to the files as soon as this is finished, and your podcast will be done. All right, so here's the folder. Here's the file.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Coffee with an Indian. I'm your resident Indian. What's up, guys? But if you don't, Catherine, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I like it. That's it. That's editing with Audacity.